Good afternoon, everyone. We are now in Deuteronomy Chapter 7. Now, yesterday we completed Chapter 6, and let's take a quick look at where we connected to Chapter 6. In Chapter 6, there was an important instruction, which is commonly called the Shema, which is to hear something that they are to hear. And this was where we picked up from yesterday. Hear, O Israel, Jehovah, our Elohim, Jehovah Echad. And then you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your strength. And this is what has been instructed of them. And the Israelites are to remember God in this way. God is giving them the land. And so in turn, they are to listen to God because God brought them out of Egypt so that they can now serve God instead. Now, as we come to the end of the chapter, they are to remember and teach their children. Now that we're in chapter 7, it says, when the Lord your God brings you into the land. This is the time where they are always reminded, when you get into the land, you need to do this. When you get into the land, you need to do this. And so it's all about remembering clearly what they are supposed to do when they get into the land. What are they going to do in the land? They are going to take possession, right? Take possession. Take possession also means that they have to dispossess the other person. And this is important because it says that which you go in, and the Lord is going to bring you in, and then the Lord will cast out many nations before you. Now, this is a manner of speaking, as you can tell. When God says, I bring you, God engages with Moses and Aaron, and through them engages with Pharaoh. And then behind the scene, God enabled all the plagues to take place. And then came the Passover. And God says, I will come and destroy all the firstborn. And he sends a destroyer. So as you can see, whenever God says, I will do something, he actually makes use of the angels, with Moses and with the people of his disposal. And he then enables and empowers them. And that's how these are reflected. God brings you in, God will cast out. But the idea here of casting out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and Jebusites, 7 nations. And then it says here, greater, mightier than you. Now you need to look at this in, I think, Genesis 15, verses 20 and 21. And there, back in Genesis, God had already said, these are the people that you have to get rid of them. Now, I think one of the perspective that we need to make is this. In those days, there were always previous nations that are there. And so in chapters 1, 2, and 3, we have read how the Edomites, and they were the first to come in to displace the Horites. And then the Moabites displaced the Emims. The Ammonites displaced the Zamzumims. And then when we came to chapters 3 and the later part of chapter 3 and chapter 4, it reminded them that Moses led them into the lands of King Sihon and King Og, both Amorite kings, and they were bigger and mightier. They were in a fortress and walled cities, and yet these Israelites, by the power of God, overpowered and displaced them, and then became the beginnings of the inheritance being handed out. So we have half tribe of Manasseh, right at the north of Bashan and Hermon, And then the northern part of Gilead was given to Reuben. The southern part of Gilead was given to Gad. And so this particular nation, if you recall, the Amorites are on this side of the Jordan, which is on the eastern shore of the Jordan. And they were defeated, and they were greater, and they were mightier. And God has shown them a preview through Moses that they can do that. And so when they go into the land, they are supposed to do the same to the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And that's the instruction. That is the instruction of possession. And Joshua became the one that took that lead. And when the Lord your God delivers them over to you, you shall conquer them and utterly destroy them. Now, another piece of information we got from chapters 3 and 4. In verse 2, here you see that God is going to, how should we say, give. And when we were reading chapters 1, 2, and 3, and they were traveling up north, and they passed through the land of Edom, then the land of Moab, and then the land of Ammon, God says, do not touch, because I am not giving you this land. So when God does not give the land, this is the phrasing. God is not going to give you the land, so you can't take it. So if you engage in war, you will lose. And then when they entered into the land of the Amorites, King Sihon and King Og, God says, I will give it to you. And they won those battles. And now coming back to chapter 7, God says, I will give them over to you. And so you will conquer them and you will destroy them and displace them. But look at what you must not do. You must not make a covenant. Do not make a pact with them. Do not show Hanan. Now, this is interesting. Do not show, this word is not mercy, by the way. This word is grace or favor. God says, you shall not make any berit with them. Don't make any contracts. Don't sign any treaties. Don't agree to anything. Do not show favor to them. And the whole idea here is God says you shall not intermarry with them. Now the idea of mixed marriages really is do not be, how should you say, do not give any one of your children as in marriage to them. So it's not you marrying them, but don't let your children do that. So this idea of mixed marriage gives the implication to, how should we say, to marry, to give a daughter away, or to give your children away. And so don't have any, how should you say, marriage ties with them. And so the explanation is here. Do not give your daughter to their son, nor take their daughter for your son. This is what marriages here means. 1, don't give your daughter away. And 2, don't take their daughters for your son. Verse 4, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. And so the danger here is the women who are there in the land are serving other gods. And when the women marries your sons, they will turn your sons from following God. Now, verse 4 is a warning. The idea here is turn aside. Turn aside. The idea of turn aside is you're walking straight and you went to the left or went to the right. That is what it means by turn away. Turn away your sons from following after me. Following after me. So God walks ahead and the sons will walk behind God, and that is what it means to walk after God and to do work for other gods. Now, you do realize that I had kept mentioning that serving God is essentially working for Him, doing things for Him. And then God looks at serving idols to be actually doing work for idols. And so the principle of priesthood is different in the Israelite term because God appoints them. And God speaks to Moses to speak to them. But in the idols, the other gods, they have priests that tells people what to do. And so this entire religious setup between Jehovah and Israel is very different. And so God told them, be very careful. Don't let any of your sons. Why are sons important? The reason being is that sons are people in the lineage of Israel that will inherit land. Daughters do not inherit land. And so when it turned the sons away, there is the fear of the land falling into somebody else's hands. Number two, there's a fear that the sons become the heads of the family, will turn their descendants, their families away from God. So it's not just the sons that God is worried about. And so we need to understand the culture of the Hebrew people, that the sons are the future leaders and elders of the clan. And if they turn, so will the clan. And the anger of the Lord will be aroused against you and destroy you suddenly. Suddenly actually means hastily. Hastily. That when God says He wants to destroy you, it will be very swift. And we read that at the time when the Assyrians, when they came, well, they heard them from afar, but when they arrived, it was sudden. And then came the Babylonians. And that is the reason that God will destroy them and take them away because of other gods. But thus you shall deal with them. This is what you need to deal with all these nations, the 7 nations. Destroy their altars, break down their pillars, cut down their wooden images, burn their carved images with fire. Now, you break this down, this is what happens. Verse 5, the idea of break down their altars, right? The altars here. These are all stacks of stones. So how do you destroy their altars? You flatten it. You remove all the stones so that it does not resemble an altar any longer. And that's how altars are made, right? They are all made with stones stacked up together. The second one here is to break down their pillars. And to break here would means to break apart. Now, how do you break apart pillars? What pillars are these? Now, you notice these are stumps or poles, something akin to, say, the American Indians. In the good old days, you have the totem pole. And these are all the carvings of gods, right? You have to break them apart. Then the next one is to cut down. To cut down means to how should you to chop into two. To chop into two, they are wooden images. And this is actually called the Asherah. Asherah are wooden figurines of the goddesses, the Canaanite goddesses. And they are usually in a wooden carved form. And then the last one here is to burn. And burn is burn, right? To burn up, right? They are carved images. Now the carved images here are literally idols. Idols are either, and in this case with fire, it is likely, right? Likely that these could be wooden or chiseled. These carved images could be wooden or it could be stone. But still, it is symbolized by throwing into the fire to destroy it. Now, all of these, you could see, God has been very clear. When you go in, 1, destroy the altars. 2, break down their sacred pillars. 3, cut down their wooden images. And 4, burn their carved images with fire. The more you look at all these previous few chapters until chapter 7, you will notice that God is particularly emphasizing on the danger of idolatry. And God keeps saying, I am a Kana God. I am a jealous God. Why? Because there is this tendency for men to look at other people and follow them, instead of them being the example for others to follow, because they are going to be unique. They are going to be very different. Unfortunately, the Israelites eventually did not want to be different. And it started from the tail end of the book of Judges, and then it went all the way down to the prophet books, where they wanted to have a king like everybody else, and they went to worship other gods and gave their children to marry other daughters of the land. And everything here that God has said took place in the prophet books that we have read in Amos, in Micah, in Isaiah, in Jeremiah. All of these are going over and over again about how the northern kingdom did it, and then the southern kingdom, and how angry they made God. So when God says, do not arouse the anger of God, the anger of God is always about them following other gods, serving other gods, and not following after God himself, Jehovah God. And Jeremiah chapter 3, God divorced the northern kingdom, and so on and so forth. And so I just want to highlight to you in chapter 7, paints all these pictures that was going to take place a number of 100 years down the road. Now God now tells them, why is he doing this? For you are a holy people. Again, a reminder of Exodus 19. You are a holy nation. So now you are a holy kadosh. A holy means special. You are a special people to Jehovah, your Elohim. Special because you are different from all other peoples in the lands around you. Why? Because God himself, because of the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, took you out of Egypt with a mighty and outstretched arm, and now is going to give you this land that he has sworn to your fathers, and you are different because you are going to serve a holy God, a special God, a different God, a God who is alive and living as opposed to the rest. And that is how it is explained here. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for himself. Now, notice this word chosen. The idea of choosing here is to decide, right? God decided for you. God examined you. And this idea is very, very quaint. It's very, very, I think, very Asian, very Oriental. The durian season is back. And so when you go to a durian stall, you will choose your durian. The idea of choosing means you go through, you smell it, you hold it, you shake it, and do whatever you need to do so that you pick the few that you want to eat. And that is what this means. You choose by making decisions. You choose by examining the durians, whether it's longish, the color, the spikes, the weight, whether it's dry, it's wet, whether it shakes, it vibrates, all these things, how fresh it is. That's the idea of choosing. So God says, I have chosen you. Jehovah has chosen you, the Israelites, after all the examination and looking at Egypt, looking at you all, willing to follow and testing you, you are now a people for me in Exodus 19. A special treasure, again, part of Exodus 19. What do you mean a special treasure? This actually means a valuable property, right? Valuable property. Either that, or you can say that they are, well, I guess in our day, a jewel. God's jewel. And this is what it means. God brought you out of Egypt to, at this place, you are a holy people. You are a special people. You're going to be different from everybody else. God has chosen you. God has examined you, tested you, and amongst everyone, you are it. Because you are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You are going to be valuable to me, and I'm going to protect you. That's why God says, I am a Kana God. I'm going to protect you because you are valuable above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Notice, this is a people. These are all people. So all over the land that they can see, there are many different groups of people. And amongst all these people, God have examined the Amorites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Jebusites, the Egyptians, everybody else. And God says, you are that, right? You are that. And why did God say so? And he's going to explain. I'm going to make you my valuable property. The Lord did not set his love on you, nor chose you to decide on you for these reasons. First, take away the reasons that you think you are special because of what you are. You were not more in number than any other people. In fact, they are smaller in number than all the other peoples there. For you were the least of all the peoples. Now, the word more in number doesn't necessarily mean few in number. It also means one of little worth. One of little worth. For you were the least. And the idea here is, let me see. Let me remove this first. The first part here is you are small, you are small in number. I think this one, you can also say that they are not many in compared to others. They are also not great, right? They are not great, less great than other people. They're not as powerful. They're not as strong. And then you were the least. And in terms of least here, it literally means that not just you are few, you are really least worthy of the least worth of all peoples. Why? Because they had nothing. They owned nothing. They had nothing. They had no land. They had no construction. They had no establishment. They had no government. They had nothing, basically. They are a people of nothing. The rest of the people there are established. And so this is what God is saying. God did not set his love on you. And this idea of love here is attachment. Right? This is not the love the Lord your God with all your heart love. This is the attachment. God is joining himself with you or choosing you, not because you were greater in number or you were more powerful than other people, because you were, in fact, the least worthy of all peoples. You had nothing. You had no value. But because the Lord loves you. Now, in verse 8, this word here, love, is to love the Lord your God, right? That he gives you, and because he would keep the oath, the promise that he swore to your fathers. And remember, this is God being a faithful God. He loves and he keeps his promises. He is faithful to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so because of this, he's loved you. He has brought you out of Egypt with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of servitude, from the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now, this idea of redeem, right? Redeem is pada. And the idea of redeem is to return to original owner or original place. Now, what does that mean? What it means is this. When the Israelites are said to be redeemed from the house of bondage or servanthood, that they have to serve Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, the idea of redeem is not a proper English word. This is a Hebrew word. That God is going to take them out of this place called Egypt and is going to restore them back to where they originally were before at the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is what redeem actually means. To return to the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, where they were before. And then they went down into Egypt, and Joseph was there, and they stayed there for a couple of hundred years, and now they're coming back out. So redeem means that they're not paid for, right? It's not like I guess some people think that this is like the pawn shop, that you were pawned to Egypt and now God is buying you back. None of those things. That's not what it means. All right. So for one of the important things of us studying this, try to put the English word aside and return back to the Hebrew meaning of redemption. Therefore, know that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant. And then this word mercy is chesed, right? Chesed is loving kindness. And this is a loving kindness to those who love him and keep his commandments. 2,000 generations to 1,000 generations, which means for a long, long time. That is an expression. That's an expression. So God will keep his covenant and give his loving kindness. And as long as there are those who love him and keep his commandments, that's what he's going to do. Which means that God is an unchanging God. And that's what I'm trying to help us understand and know God from the book of Deuteronomy. So he is God. He is God. Jehovah, your Elohim. He is Elohim. He is faithful. He keeps covenant. He is merciful, or he has loving kindness. He is the one who keeps oath. He loves you. He has attached himself to you. Here, he has chosen you. And all of this because of his faithfulness. But also know this. He repays those, right? He repays those who hate him. What does that mean? What does that mean? Remember, hate is saneh. Saneh here really means to turn away. Is like, oh, you're poking at my eye. I just cannot stand looking at you, so I turn away. If you approach me, I will walk away. And that is what hate means. God will, and this is a very interesting word, right? God will shalom. Now, when we were studying the book of Exodus, you would see to repay somebody in full is to shalom. And when you finish repaying, you have shalom. So peace, that we call shalom peace, really comes from the idea of a completion of a transaction, that whatever is owing is fully paid for. So shalom is to repay. Shalom is to complete the repayment and thereby have peace. And so God says, I will pay you. Now, of course, God is not going to give you money. For those who turn away from him, who hate him, he will pay them to their face. Now, this is a very interesting phrase. To destroy them. You see, this is what it means. This is an A and a B. To repay them is to destroy them. Just as they are going to destroy the people in the land, God is going to destroy them. And that he will not be slack. The idea of slack is, how should I say, to delay. With him, those who hate him, look at this. This is very serious words that God is saying. He will repay to his face. When he's looking at it, he will make this payment complete. He will shalom him. And these are serious, serious words, as you can tell, right? So God has two sides to the coin. One is that he's a faithful God, and secondly, he is a just God. When God is faithful, he will keep his covenant and he will show his loving kindness. He will attach himself to you. He will choose you and bless you. But if you turn away from him and you go after other gods and serve other gods, God will repay and destroy, and he will not be slow to that. Therefore, you shall keep the commandment, the statutes, the judgments, which we talked about yesterday, which I command you today to observe them, to perform them. Now, this last phrase here, I think it's important for us to take note. Therefore, you shall keep the commandments, statutes, and judgments, and to do them. This here is the reason. This is the reason. Why do the Israelites need to keep or guard? Right? Why do they need to do that and to perform? Because God told them so. But not only that, you see, we tend to be a bit simplistic. You know, God said so we do it. God here gives the reason and the rationale, just like in Isaiah, you know, come, let us reason together. Though your sins are as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. And so God says, you know, you are a special people to me. And I have chosen you to be my people. You are going to be a valuable property to me, right? Right here. Above all the other peoples on the face of this land. I did not attach myself to you or join myself to you because you were greater in number. I did not choose you because you had more head count or you were stronger or you were better. No, no, no. In fact, you were the worst of all the peoples in the land because the rest of them will be greater, bigger, stronger, more established, knows what they want, and so on and so forth. And so you guys, you are nobody in Egypt. You are nobody when you came out. And so instead of serving Pharaoh, you serve me. That's basically up to verse 8. And so, no, you must know how, because you have experienced him. See, knowledge comes from experience. And the experience is having seen what God has done by bringing you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of bondage. So now that you have experienced the Lord, your God, he is Elohim. He is the mighty one. He is the mighty one. He showed you his mighty hand. He is faithful. He will keep his covenant. He will show you loving kindness. He is conditional. Right? If you love him and you will keep his commandments. If you don't love him and you don't keep his commandments, it means that you are turning away from him. And when you turn away from him, God has something else in store. And so God is a just God, and he will judge. He will shalom you, and he will destroy you, and he will be quick with it. Therefore, so now that we've come to the full conclusion, just make sure you're careful with the commandments of God, the statutes of God, the judgments of God, of what I command you today to perform all of them. Now in verse 12 onwards, there is a fairly long segment. I would like to actually spend more time on this segment, and so I would ask you to go back and read this segment so that we will attend to this in very detailed fashion, because as you know, chapter 6 is so crucial. Chapter 7 builds on that. And by understanding the rest of chapter 7, you will understand the mind of God. And I don't want to rush through the rest of this chapter. And so I hope to finish it on Monday. And do go back and go through the videos and go through the sessions so that we can unpack it in greater detail. The mind of God, really. Look at who God is in all these words. We are too preoccupied with commands, statutes, and judgments. We should take one step back and look at these few chapters as who is God? What is God saying about himself while he is instructing Moses to tell them all these things, to recount, to refer back to Exodus 19, to say all these? Why? And there is a reason. It is to make this new generation of Israelites know God. And so we will end here in verse 11 and we'll continue on Monday. Any questions?
Pastor?
Yes.
Elohim, Adonai, and Asherah. Is this the same, like Yeshua or God?
No. These are all names that are given. And you know what names are, right? Names in Hebrew are descriptors. They are description of character. They are for memorial, to be remembered. And it's supposed to trigger the mind as to who God is, a particular aspect of God. So you have El Shaddai, God who is almighty, God who will provide everything they need. You have all kinds of words, right? Jehovah, Yireh, right? You have Elohim. Now the word Elohim comes from two meanings, right? One is that you call him Elohim as the name of God, but Elohim also means that he is the mighty God, the mighty one, that he's the one who brought you out of Egypt with a mighty hand. You see that?
Yeah.
So these names of God is really to prompt and stir the Israelites' mind. And so names of God is not for singing or for for quizzes and it is really to trigger them and says, oh, okay, this means what? It means that something has happened in that incident where this name was given. And so that incident is recalled. And so they will talk about, the things that God has done that led to that name being used. Elohim, let me take that one step back. Elohim, let me just do this, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor.
Elohim. Elohim, right?
It's a Hebrew
Elohim, okay? And just for our sake, since we have some time, I'll just explain this. Yeah. The word Elohim is commonly translated as God, but I think we should not have a one-track mind. The word Elohim comes from the word El, which is this word. Okay, El, which is here. And Elohim is a plural of El, right? So this is a plural. El is a singular. And so Elohim literally means the mighty one, right? The mighty one. Aleph being an ox and Lamed being a shepherd's staff, put together gives you a picture of one who is very strong. And that picture denotes a hero, one who is very powerful, right? Who is mighty, who has strength. Okay? And so what do you apply this to? In the old days, ancient days, it's applied to God, right? Because he created, in the beginning, God created, right? Bereshit bara Elohim. And so it is the creator God. is also with reference to other gods. And so you may call them idols, but they are all called El or Elohim as well. Because to the other people, this is a mighty one they worship, they serve. Then you see kings. Kings are mighty people, right? And they have the power to cause you to die and send you away into exile and so on and so forth. Heroes who can win battles are also called Elohim. And since they are people who are powerful, so beings who are powerful are angels. Angels are also called Elohim, right? Besides heroes, then tyrants. Tyrants being, in feudal system, the landlords are tyrants. And so they are Elohim. And so God says you are not supposed to behave like that to your other people. Now, we have also seen in Exodus chapter 6, 5 and 6, somewhere there, that God made Moses an Elohim to Aaron. Right? And the reason being is that Moses was also an Elohim to Pharaoh, because Pharaoh is an Elohim. And so they are both on equal grounds. Now, that is how the ancients look at Elohim. So don't have a one-track understanding that it must be God. Yeah. All right. I hope that helps.
Yes, it is very helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Okay.